Now that I got my drawing saved, I'm going to go ahead and do some changes here. But prior to doing that, I'm going to save this as, go ahead and bring this up. I'm going to save it as a copy of what I've already done. So I'm going to give that version 2, go ahead and hit enter. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make some changes. So since this is now Bookend Assembly 2, let's go back to this view here, and we will come up and we will change that back to a shaded view as you see here. Let's go ahead and do a Control S to save that. And now what I'm going to do is to start coming in and putting some dimensions in. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to go ahead now and go to Annotations and go to Smart Dimensions. I'm going to start over here in the right view. Select here, come down here to the bottom, and select here. Now you're going to notice that when this comes up, it's going to be in millimeters. We're going to fix that. So we'll come up to, once we get that in, we'll check that off here real quick. Come up here to Options, click on that. And then when that comes up, go to Document Properties, and we're going to go to, we're set to ANSI. That's good, that's important. Let's go back to System Options here, Document Properties, Units, that's what I'm looking for. So now we're set to millimeter gram second. We're going to set that to inch pound second. Dual dimension readout is all good. I'm going to go with that, hit OK. Now that shows it to be 8 inches. So before I forget, let's come down here and look. Notice how the drawing changed its actual version number in the title block. That's really good. That saves us some time. So now we're going to come back up here and we're going to give a dimension of across the top of the part. So we'll select this and we'll come over here and we'll grab this edge and this edge. We'll bring it up to here. And now we're going to come over here and grab this piece of steel there, and we're going to set that underneath it, right about there. Now the top dimension, as you can see here, I can move up, which is good. Okay, now let's keep going. So I'm going to come down here now, and I'm going to come down here to the very bottom of this, right on that part, because I know that's where the actual part comes in at 6.9 inches. I'm going to come out to about right there and designate that dimension. And then now what I want to do is, since I've already got the 8 in and I know what the steel is, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a measurement based on this distance here to this distance there. Okay, so that says 1.81. Now my guess is that would be bigger than that. It would be 1.8125. But we don't know that, so what we're going to do is accept that dimension. We're going to go back up in here into Design Options, and I'm going to make a change real quick on those units. I'm not too fond of that, so we'll go to Document Properties here, and I'm going to lengthen that out to 4 decimal places and hit OK. Okay, so the reason I did that is I did want to see that 13/16 in there. So I'm going to move this up to about right there so I can see it better. Probably take this dimension over a bit, and so we're good on that. Okay, let's go ahead and get some clearance on the bottom here. So we'll go ahead and do that smart dimension on the bottom right there to let's go up here and snap on the bottom of that footer here. There it is. We'll highlight, come out here, and it says that it's 3/16 of an inch. That's good. So we'll put that right there. Okay, that's probably the maximum amount of dimensions I want to put on this one view. And to keep it from being so cluttered and close to the ISO, I'm going to go ahead and accept that dimension. And I'm going to click out here in space, grab this one view, and use my arrow buttons, and I'll arrow that up. Or I actually can use it with my mouse too. I can kind of move it over a little bit, just making sure that I'm not touching the top of the border sheet envelope. Okay, that looks pretty good now. Let's come up here and let's start getting some dimensions on the top here. So actually on the front view, we're going to go with the front view here, click on this, so we can get the thickness of this part. We'll come up here and say that it's 3/4 of an inch. That's good. Same thing down here. We'll click on the top of this piece here and the bottom of the piece of wood. Same thing again, 3/4 of an inch. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to take a dimension from the top here down to the top of the steel plate, which would be right there, right here, and that'll show me that that's going to be 6 9/16. Okay, so that's good. And we probably better come up here and get an angle on this chamfer here. So I'll select this, and I'll select that, and that tells me it's 135 degrees. Now I can kind of play around with that a little bit. Let's go back in about right here. Essentially, you're trying to get a 45 in there, so we'll just kind of play around with it until we find 45. I thought I had it right there. Okay, so I got 45 there, and kind of move that out a little bit. That's good. All right. We should note what the size of the steel is. So I'm going to go ahead and snap a dimension on this and on that, and we're going to come up and see that it's definitely 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and we're going to come down here, the same thing on the bottom. We're going to make sure that we get a measurement on the bottom piece of that steel. Come down here on the bottom mounting plate, just in case someone didn't sneak any European steel that's going to be at a different dimension. Okay, so that looks good. Alright, so moving right along, we know that our letter height is going to be 6 1/4, just so that we double check that on the opposite side. I'm going to take that dimension as well, zoom out. Yep, that tells us what it is. Okay, good. Now, we got to get the length of the steel itself, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to this very edge right there, scroll out here to this very edge out here, and that tells me that length. That's good. Alright, we need to get this length here, which would be essentially that angle coming across, and again it too is 6 9/16. And for our footers here, we'll go ahead and get a dimension on that. May have one of those dimensions wrong, but that's okay. At the end of the world. Yeah, it was a little bit off. You know, that's a 1/2 inch, so that's okay. Let's see, creeping right along. There's an interior dimension right in here, 45. We don't have to actually get that. It's pretty much a sight unseen. But let's come over here to this one, and let's make sure we get some dimensions on this top view here. So we're going to come up on the top to designate that that is definitely going to be a 1/8 of an inch on that steel. Let's get some bolt head diameters here. So we're going to get a bolt head diameter of 0.3217. Okay, we got that. I think we're pretty good now. Now you can come back and put in some notes in the drawing saying they're using a standard Roman ogee, as opposed to trying to go in and dimension all that out. That would be a lot of work and probably a lot of a waste of time. So let's do that. Let's come in and add a note. And we're going to come over here, and on our note block, we're going to put it about right there. And we're going to say note, colon, drop down. Okay, for, spell it right, the bottom of the wood face, the edges on 3 sides will be a Roman ogee, period. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll accept that note. Now granted it's hanging out over the edge here, so I'm just going to move that over here. So there's no point in going in and doing this complex measurement. I don't think I'm missing a dimension, but this does look a little crowded down here, so I'm going to move this out just a bit, and I'll move that over here, kind of clean that dimension out. I do not, yes I did get the thickness here, so that's good. Double checking I don't have any repetitive dimensions, making sure that we're all good on that. Drop this one down a little bit. I'm pretty sure that dimension's wrong, but we're going to go with that for now. Okay. Scroll back up here. We do not have the width of the actual letters, so what I'll do up here is I can come up here and snap on, it's actually kind of hard to read it in that view. I'm going to do it in this view here. I'm going to grab that view there, snap to that, and I'm going to snap to that edge there. So to kind of get a feel for the thickness of that, or the width of that letter, I'm going to take this 1/8 inch piece of steel and move that out a little bit, so the fabricator can kind of see what sizes we're working with. We'll move this over here a little bit there as well. And since this P is kind of tight, I'm going to move that further out. Actually, I'll put it over here. Kind of jamming up my dimensions here, but we got to be able to look at this and kind of get a feel for the width of that part. So I'm going to come in here to this one edge, to this edge out here, and I'm going to get a feel for what that width is. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. Now, I'm not going to go in and add a bunch of notes on the dimensions of this. This is going to be pretty much predicated on the actual detailed part itself when I go back and detail out all these particulars on that part. But this looks decent, and I'm going to go with that for now. One last thing we need to do is we need to actually change the title of this drawing here. It's no longer a pictorial view, it's more of a detailed assembly drawing. So we're going to go ahead and check off that dimension, go right over here and right mouse click on the sheet, and we're going to edit that sheet format. So when that comes up, we're going to double click on that piece of text there, and what we're going to say is detailed view. Detailed view of bookend assembly. Hit the escape button there. And we should be doing good. Go ahead and get out of that. We'll get back to this and hit edit again. Alright, hit the F key, and looking good.